Hello and welcome to this new series of interviews that we're going to be doing at the IAD, basically with people who are using the system within their own work. Now, we've met Sean before. He's been with the IAD for at least 5 years and he's got the IAD UK. So I'm going to ask a series of questions that I have here that I've also asked other people like Louise, and we're going to go through them and see what kind of differences and similarities we find in the responses between all of the people using next level coaching, constructive development theory, dynamic intelligence, and so on. So let's kick it off now. So welcome, Sean. Do you want to introduce yourself? I know I've just said you're the UK IAD, but anything else you want to add?
No, just that we've known each other for quite a while, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Smashing. So that's, first question is, what first drew you to the constructive development theory and dynamic intelligence?
So the first thing that drew me to constructive development theory and dynamic intelligence was my own coaching practice. I trained as a coach in 2018, and what I learned from doing that was insufficient, I found, when it came to actually helping people. They gave you lots of a hodgepodge of theories and methods that they claimed would help you to coach somebody and move them along in their thinking or in their goals. But when it come down to it, when the rubber hit the road, the idea of dancing in the moment with a coaching client didn't really help you very much when it come to trying to address a particular challenge that they had. And then you very kindly sent me your PhD thesis in 2020, and I read it, and it was a real light bulb moment for me. It was just like, that is the answer. That was exactly how I felt. It's just like, this is the answer that I've been looking for. The way that constructive development theory gets down to the individual things that can impact somebody's thinking and move them along in their journey was exactly what was needed, and the diagnostic aspect to it as well.
The diagnostic aspect being the identity compass that we use. It is a good system. That's why I chose it for the PhD. So what is it about CDT that resonates with you personally beyond just being a professional tool? CDT.
Constructive development theory resonates with me personally. If I look back at my own life and my own developmental journey, I can see that the big changes that have happened in my life that I've initiated have been as a result of changes in my own construction. An example of that would be, I was hung up on some trauma from childhood, and it affected me in many different ways, particularly around confidence and people pleasing, in fact. And I addressed it through a series of exercises that ostensibly were addressing gratitude, but in what they were really doing was they were shifting my focus from past to present and future, and they were creating greater balance there. So that aspect of it for me, from a constructive development theory, really resonates. So I felt it personally.
That's really good. So the next question is, how has engaging with CDT shifted how you see yourself and your identity? And you just started to touch on that. For me, it's level based, so I understand the levels. But for you, how has it impacted how you see yourself and your identity?
How I see myself and my identity. I guess I no longer see myself as discrete I ams in different circumstances. I see myself more as a whole, and consider my identity across all of those aspects. I take a more complex view of myself, I guess, and my own life. And this really came to the fore for me when I undertook an identity compass when I was actually training in the identity compass. And I recognised that when I was answering the questions, I wasn't answering the question from the perspective of my employment at the time, because I had a business as well, and I also had other things going on in my life, and I was answering them from the perspective of all of those different things. and so it was a much more holistic view.
Good, because I think it opens up our global observer abstract. I agree. So,
Yeah.
has CDT... Well, actually, I'm going to ask this one. If you reflect on your AQ journey, where do you feel you are now in comparison to when you began? And I remember that we've done a number of profiles over the years, and the initial profile, I remember it. What do you remember about where you were back then in comparison to where you are now?
I remember yes, I do remember the first profile you did for me, and I remember thinking that's rubbish. I'm not sure that's exactly the word that I used. I didn't immediately identify with what you were telling me, but I went away and thought about it, and actually, the more I thought about it, it was like, actually, I think you're right. There were 2 or 3 things I remember from that. I remember you telling me that I was an emotional thinker. I remember you telling me that I was very internal, and I remember you challenging me to ask myself how I might be wrong. What was I missing that was just as important? And that's something that has really stuck with me. That one question, what am I missing that is just as important? And I use that all the time in my own practice, and with any opportunity, really, quite frankly. In terms of where I am now, so I can't remember what my AQ level was or my TQ level was, but I'd probably kind of maybe high TQ2 around that time, given that I was very internal. I think I rapidly went through TQ3 up to TQ4. I would still say I'm slightly more internal, but from a self-authoring perspective, I take into account other people's perspectives a lot more and can see those. I refer to other people's judgment and then apply that internally.
Yep.
So yeah, I think I've come up quite a long way in that respect, and I feel it in myself. I feel it in my own thinking. Recognise it in my own thinking is probably a better word.
So if you're wondering what the labels mean, self-authored is one of Robert Keegan's and other people's systems where it's a level 4 thinker. Level 3 is a more socialised mind, and Sean went through socialised into level 4 after doing a lot of work for himself. And the next profile he did demonstrated this because his thinking had grown at least 2 levels in that time. It was a few years. It's not like it was the 2 days apart. It was a few years, but the self-work was important. And this is what this next question is. Has CDT ever given you language for something you've always felt but couldn't quite explain? Or has that developed over time?
I think it's developed over time. But if I go back to the previous example of it's changed how I feel about past traumas in many ways. As I that was something that affected me for a long time. And previously, I used to think it was the trauma, the thing that was the problem in my thinking. But in actual fact, it was the past perspective that I was taking, rather than looking to the present or looking to the future. It was just an imbalance there. So I would say it's definitely given me a better language to use around that, and obviously through the practice, more of that comes on board. So I recognise now when I'm using a particular cognitive intention, or I need to tweak a particular cognitive intention in order to address a perceived imbalance in myself.
So did you construct it? Are you constructing that past trauma differently now? Is that what you're saying?
I've reconstructed it so it's no longer a trauma. Yeah.
There you go. That's CDT in action. Because one of the questions here is how does CDT show up in your everyday life, and that's one of the ways you do it. But you're doing it consciously. So the 4 pillars of CDT are obviously intention, awareness, choice, and response. And you're aware of your intention, and you're choosing how you respond to it.
Yeah,
that's perfect, isn't it?
Yeah.
This sounds like it was all set up. It's not. So what challenges have you faced? This is from a professional perspective. What challenges have you faced introducing CDT or cognitive intention, whatever, to clients or the developmental thinking, to not just coaching clients but business clients? Any challenges introducing it?
There are challenges introducing it, in particular to coaching clients, because they have a fixed perspective of what coaching is and does.
That's your generational stuff, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, there's that, and there's also this idea of but it's my limiting beliefs that I need fixing, or it's business coaching that I need, not helping with my thinking, not realizing that actually, yes, some business coaching might be useful, but actually you're not going to be able to consume it if you don't change the way that you think, to overcome some of the challenges that you're having. So I've had potential clients, prospects turn down an engagement because of that. People that an interesting other challenge I had was with someone I did eventually end up coaching and had massive success with them, addressing their imposter syndrome. Was they felt that what I was offering was too high level for them. It wasn't for them because it was too high level.
Interesting.
So I think that's a challenge back to me, or indeed us, around how we market and sell and explain this to people, because it is for everybody. It doesn't matter what level you are. The point is you can come up another level, and you don't have to be high level to start with. That's the journey that we take you through.
Definitely. Well, I've just got a client right now that's he's not my client, he's another coach's client, but we've all talked about it, and he was concerned that his level's too low to develop. I'm like, no, it's a perfect benchmark.
Yeah,
it's how you think about it that works. Now, other developmental psychologists say that it's painful to move up, or it's painful to move between stages. It's not when you know growth is the point. Yeah, that's how I see that. So, for a couple more questions. Why does this work matter to you?
Why does it matter to me?
Yeah.
I think that as a species, we're at an existential crux at the moment, quite frankly. There's not just one existential crisis around at the moment. Yes, we've got climate change, but we've got AI, and as great as generative AI is, and as fast as that is allegedly impacting the world of work, it's going to be nothing to what happens when artificial general intelligence comes on. And then we've still got all of the problems with the political elite just being being power hungry. Low level, I would argue.
It's arguable.
So for me, it's essential for mankind, for us to raise the level of thinking for leadership generally. That's in business, in politics, in our public services, everywhere, in order to be able to mitigate and hopefully avoid some of these looming crises.
So one of the things we've got from an IAD perspective is an initiative called Destination 7, where we try and get everybody to AQ7, which is a really good level of thinking. And obviously you're going to say good and bad are subjective, I appreciate that. But if we know that people are at a choice where their level is 7, we've got a good foundation for propelling society, or whoever you want. For example, MPs do not operate at level 7. They're around AQ5 at best, because what's in it for me? How much money can I make for me now? And what's in it for me now?
It's just a drive for power.
That's exactly what it is, greed as well. So where do you see, I've asked this one, where do you see CDT and next level coaching, if you like, making the biggest impact in the next 5 years? We kind of just touched on it, but
we touched on it in terms of the need for it. If we think about just the next 5 years, from my perspective, my aim is to get it out into business leadership as much as possible, whether that's through individual engagements or engagements with businesses, in order to raise the level of dynamic intelligence in business generally, because that's often where our next crop of leaders come from. But if not, they'll be influencing MPs, and they have an influence. So there's always a possibility then that it leads to there. And I know that you're doing some interesting work as well, but I don't want to steal your thunder. You've got interesting plans, so that has potential in the next 5 years to make a big difference as well. So I think it's modest in the next 5 years, but hopefully that will create a groundswell that will propel and grow and flourish.
I agree. And on that note, obviously, I've got Thinking Deliberately coming out very soon, but the next 2 books are Coaching Deliberately and Leading Deliberately. And Sean's kindly agreed to write a section on imposter syndrome for coaching deliberately.
Coaching deliberately. Yeah.
That kind of idea. So the impact of how we think about these things that we just take for granted, and there's conventional wisdom out there about everything. Saw a link on LinkedIn yesterday about leadership and how they've done some research on leadership, but it's stuff I've been teaching for years, and it's kind of obvious.
Yeah.
But the study makes it, it's cemented or reified in the research, in the literature now. So we definitely need to get these ideas out there now as a foundation for that surge. I agree.
Yeah.
So finally then, final question. What advice would you give to coaches or anyone just beginning with CDT or maybe next level coaching? What advice would you give people?
I think I would actually take a step back from that and answer that question slightly differently, if I may. If there's anybody out there that is considering becoming a coach, learning to coach, or even if they are a coach, I would encourage them to look at CDT and next level coaching. It doesn't have to be a replacement for what you're doing, but it's certainly a good adjunct. And I think over time you'll recognise that actually it's probably, it is better than anything else.
We're not biased.
Out there. We're not biased. But as I said to you, I went through the traditional coaching route with through the gold standard of coaching, and it really isn't, as far as I'm concerned. This is the standard. This is the benchmark for next level coaching.
So on that, this is the last question. What do you think your impact's going to be on the future of coaching using these systems? How are you going to improve next level coaching? How are you going to improve CDT? What's your PhD look like?
What is my well, that changes every week if I'm honest, Darren. I have a number of different areas of research that I'm interested in. I'm interested in the specific cognitive intentions. I think there's an opportunity to really hone in on those and get very, very clear definitions. I also think there's potentially some gaps in some of those that would help to make next level coaching and CDT even better by addressing some of those and looking for some of those other imbalances that perhaps aren't being spotted through the tooling that we're using at the moment. And that's an area of research I'm particularly interested in.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's the end of that one. So thank you very much to Sean for telling us how he uses the system. If you're interested in individual, team, group or organisational development, click in the link below or give us a call. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darren.